I'm Stephen Lepitak. I'm editor of The Drum. I'm here to talk with a brilliant panel. We're going to look at how entertainment and media and engagement is changing as technology continually innovates, and things are changing so rapidly in this space. How do you keep an audience? How do you find an audience? We're going to look at different elements of that space and actually talk through where is it going? How do you actually engage with an audience in this day and age, and where is technology going to take that? So we're going to have 3 presentations, and then afterwards we're going to have a chat on the couch.
Thank you. Thanks, Steve. In the description of this session, it says consumption, content consumption, distribution, and creation is changing. We all know that. And at Turner, to stay relevant in that space, we are taking a fan-centric approach and are looking at innovative ways to reach and engage our audiences. And I will show a couple of examples of how we do that. First, we talk about fan-centric. When we talk about fan-centric, there are 3 things that we keep in mind. One is perfect for me, meaning that we need to create and curate content that people want to see, obviously, but also which drives engagement. And that also means looking at new content types like VR. The second element we're looking at is give me more. Real fans want to have more of what they like. And that means online, but also offline. So we're looking at creating 360 degrees brand experiences. And the third element is on my terms. So give me what I want, how I want it, when I want it. And an example of a product that encapsulates those 3 things, I'll show you a little video of a product we launched. It's called Filmstruck, which is a curated movie series which we launched in the US.
You can just tell Filmstruck is a labor of love.
You talk the lingo, what's your pitch?
A passion project only authentic movie lovers would create.
There's not a dry eye in the house.
It begins with our carefully curated, constantly refreshed library, high-definition transfers and restorations sourced from the finest masters.
It's pretty, but is it art?
Our films have been meticulously handpicked and organized into easily navigated genres, filmmakers, themes.
Valda and Legrand do something interesting. They make the music match her.
And then complemented with exclusive bonus material.
Kurosawa's footprint is vast.
There's a wealth of insight into the world's most wondrous films from Filmstruck's hosts.
Breaking the Waves is film at its most transcendental.
And experts.
Welcome to Filmstruck.
It all makes discovering and falling in love with that next movie simple and fun.
It's been a hard day's night, and I've been working.
No movie service would ever call itself the finest without the mother lode of film libraries. Filmstruck is the exclusive home of the largest selection of streaming Criterion films. We're proud to carry the largest streaming selection of Criterion titles and exceptional bonus materials.
We'll smile, and we'll make their lives a little happier, huh?
At Filmstruck, our ever-evolving library will be available for you on all your favorite devices. Filmstruck, the new premium streaming movie service by film lovers for film lovers.
Now, for us, the curation is important not only to create that fan experience, but it also helps people to find what they want in this cluttered environment. Filmstruck is just one example. We also launched Boomerang, which is a kids over-the-top service 2 months ago in the US, together with Warner Brothers. And OTT, of course, is just one channel to reach our audiences. And when we look at what kind of channels we want to use to reach our audience, depends which part of our audience we want to talk to. So for kids, YouTube is clearly a very important channel. And actually here in Europe, we've been able to increase our audience 5-fold over the last 12 months. And Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat are heavily used by Bleacher Report and Copa 90. Bleacher Report is a digital sports company which we own and has operations in the US and in the UK. And Copa 90, for people who don't know it, they're here in the UK and they're focused on the football fan experience. And their audience is mainly millennial, and that's why it's the social channels. And then besides the online channels, as I talked about in my second point, kind of give me more how to create 360 fan experiences. This slide shows a couple of the things that we're doing. Apps and games clearly are important, and gaming is still a growing area for us. But the little emoticon here is called Tuski. It's an emoticon on the WeChat platform in China. It reaches tens of millions of people a day. And to date, it has reached 860 million people. And we're now creating content based on the character. And it shows you kind of, there are different ways of looking at creating content, but also where do we find our IP. There's also a little Tuski cafe in Beijing. And when we look at location-based entertainment, we have, there's a water park in Thailand, which is Cartoon Network branded. And in Dubai, IMG World of Adventure, which is a theme park which opened earlier this year, has a dedicated area for Cartoon Network. And other experiences, we've hooked up with the London Fashion Week this year. And actually, you can't read it, but on her shirt it says, "I'm not a princess." And then the last thing we briefly want to talk about is virtual reality. Virtual reality is an interesting medium, we believe, and we're trying to explore it in different ways. And for CNN, for example, it's a very good medium. And CNN has trained up dozens of their journalists. We have VR equipment in over a dozen of our bureaus across the globe. And they've created VR content about all kind of places around the globe. And when CNN opened up VR on a platform in March, it became the third biggest VR platform after YouTube and Facebook. Now, when we talk about VR and gaming, those two go really well together. So I'll show you a little clip about a product we launched here in Europe, which is a VR game.
Ice King has ruined the Adventure Time party! What the what? Finn and Jake need your help to get it bouncing again.
Awesome!
It is! Woo! Snowball the Ice King's evil penguins and glide your way through Ooh with our epic virtual reality Icy Ooh viewer and game. Out now! Plus, head over to cartoonnetwork.co.uk ICU and answer this question for your chance to win the Adventure Time ICU viewer and a phone to play it on.
Now, when we're talking about gaming and we're talking about fan experience, esports comes to mind. And we launched an e-league in the US last year. And again, I'll show you a little video about that.
This is the start of something.
Everything is going to be taken to a whole new level.
Join us in making esports history.
Here we go, the big boys are in the house, and it's going to be one hell of a game.
The action's on, and reset! The reset!
Future surprise!
Bang, baby! You cannot be serious! What is this? That was insane!
What a shocking start to E-League!
Welcome to the Overwatch Open.
The ice wall, bugs coming through, and there's a triple...
How do we show your little dog?
Oh, that is a murder!
Oh, wait a second. Gonna be sticking to the fuse, and he's gonna hit the shot. It's unreal!
I will body all.
Bring it on, baby.
That's what I'm talking about! Let's go!
Who's gonna get the first game? Nico! There's a reason he's called the best player in the world.
This is huge. This is absolutely huge.
You suck! Will this beef ever end? I legit think there's something wrong with his head.
We're about to get scared. I just got farted on by a gargoyle.
I wanted to get deep into the game. You want me to get closer? Hell no.
What are you even doing there, mate?
Don't worry about it, man. Just showing high energy.
Soren, when I see you.
I told you guys that this would happen.
Nothing good happens when you hit the wall. That wasn't my fault.
Activation, and he dropped the TV.
Missed the combo. Wow, the drop of the century.
We're about to kick and push your ass off this set.
He let go of the controller. He's waving his hand in the air. Shucksy, are you kidding me? That's going to be the ace in the round. Unreal play.
The bravery it takes when everything is on the line.
It's a very competitive game at a high level.
Welcome to the E-League Grand Finals.
We are going the distance.
Kevin gets the kill and shot on Snacks. It's going to be down to the last possible second. They get it. Astronauts, they win the first major championship. Unbelievable.
The sweep, the crowd.
That's got to make you feel good.
The victory.
Perfection from beginning to end.
What a world we live in.
So with E-League, esports, 80% of the audience in esports is outside of the US, so obviously we're exploring ways to roll this out globally. Just to wrap it up, I said we'll take a fan-centric approach, which means perfect for me, give them the content they want, give me more, create 360 brand experiences on my terms, give them in the way they want it, and combining that with innovative ways to drive reach and engagement, we're able to reach and drive up our audiences. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm the founder and CEO of Minute Media. Maybe a more known brand that is part of our umbrella is 90 Min, a large global football publisher. Essentially, what we've been operating over the last 5-6 years is probably the largest, the fastest growing sports media platform on the internet, starting the company in Tel Aviv as a technology venture, and then been growing since on the media front around the world. Again, we've been operating 3 vertical brands, starting around 90 Min, which is a global football publisher, currently active in 15 different countries, markets, 11 different languages. Then a year ago, extended beyond 90 Min and launched 12 app, which covers all American sports, including NBA, NFL, MLB. And recently, speaking of esports, we just launched our 3rd sports brand called Double Tap, which covers esports globally from a publishing standpoint. The theme of the platform was to go and leverage content created by contributors or by fans, replacing traditional journalists. That's been the premise behind 90 Min when we started the company in late 2011. Obviously, back then, it was kind of, I would say, a side-ish idea, fairly far from the mainstream of journalism. But if you look at the space over the last 2-3 years, it's clear, just the previous presentation from Turner, it's clear that the world is converging more and more towards consuming content, news, videos from contributors or fans. We're currently serving about 75 million unique users on our sites across the 3 brands. Again, as you can tell, it's a fairly global phenomena, same as football. We did start across the main markets in Europe, then extended to Latin America, to the relevant parts of Asia, which is effectively the largest market for football content consumption, and then extended to the US. You can add to that the social numbers, the year-over-year growth, so it's a fairly robust set of numbers at this stage. Again, this is on the funding side. We have raised about $60 million in funding since inception from strategic and financial VCs. Okay, so again, this is the picture that we have seen when we thought about starting the business in late 2011. So we are looking at other verticals within news, lifestyles, tech, business as an example. And we've been seeing that transition in content creation and consumption, again, into new forms of contributor, fan-driven content creation. And we were assuming back then that this phenomena should also extend into sports. Obviously, with so much passion by sports fans, if we are able to come up with the right technology, the right product tools for content creators, we could gain a lot of scale on the content creation side. And with that scale and with the global reach, we could create that new kind of next generation sports platform. If we looked at sports 5-6 years ago, actually the 1 or 2 companies we could look up to, again, speaking of Turner, was Bleacher Report. So Bleacher was the first company that started fan-driven content or platform in American sports. And we were assuming that we could do the same thing in global football using our proprietary technology. So what are the characteristics of a technology platform that enables new media concept? So I would say the first one, again, as indicated, is contributors versus journalists. As the audiences are becoming younger and consume content on mobile or from social, there is probably less importance placed on the name of the writer or the content producer. It has to be more engaging, more authentic, and also it has to gain scale. So if you do manage to come up with a product that incentivizes contributors or fans to create content, you get at scale. So that's probably one of the first basic characteristics of new media platforms or publishing platforms. Again, social and mobile versus traditional destinations. Again, we all look at the numbers, and we know that all the new media or publishing sites that were formed over the last 5 to 10 years are really driven by mobile consumption, which is very, very different than desktop in terms of the content created, and are also very driven by the large scale of social platforms. More and more users go and consume their content by what they come across on social networks. And that has to really change the architecture of how you build a publishing platform these days or over the last 5 years. The third fundamental characteristic is really, in the past, if you looked at a number of content items, we would see predominantly long-form text articles, whereas if we're looking at contents today, we're talking about snackable, short-form, rich media, largely video, or rich form content. Again, that has to change the way products are designed, the way content is produced and served in a quite fundamental fashion. Platforms, again, if you look at new media-oriented platforms over the last 5 to 10 years, many of them are actually technology-driven, right? So companies like Facebook and Twitter are effectively media companies, technology first. They're very open. Take Twitter as an example or YouTube as another example. You come across YouTube videos or across tweets around the internet on many other sites. So it's a very distributed experience. It's not enough to only count on a destination site. Nowadays, you really have to find ways through technology to extend your content, to extend your product into other sites, into other networks. And that's what we've been doing with 90 Min and then with our other brands. Currently, if you go to the likes of Yahoo Sports in the UK or MSN in the US, and other large publishing brands, you will see a lot of 90 Min extended content and experiences. So we've been growing as a destination, but also found ways through technology to extend ourselves into other sites, into other platforms. And again, lastly, is the scale, is the global. When you cover a space like esports or football digitally, it has to be global. It has to be in 10 to 15 languages. It's the same event being consumed by tens of millions, hundreds of millions of consumers around the world. And if you look at traditional publishing, it's predominantly local, one language, one country. So again, that global element could only be scaled through technology and lower cost of creating and distributing content. So that's the fifth characteristic of new publishing platforms. Okay, so that's, again, that's the chart that I'm assuming many of you have seen, which is the importance of social platforms and predominantly Facebook in driving users into publishing sites. So again, 10, 15 years ago, it was all destination traffic. But over the last 5 years, if you do not properly integrate with social networks, again, you're out of the game in terms of driving user growth. It does affect how you create content, how you distribute content, how you monetize. So again, I believe that it's the incumbent publishers, it's the new ones, everyone is facing that phenomena and having to cope with it. Otherwise, it's really becoming hard to grow. Okay, so speaking of content creation, so the reason we believed 5 years ago the way to go, especially around sports, the way to go in terms of authentically engaging fans was to go and offer contributors or other fans to come and create content. We believed it would be a lot more open, engaging, scalable, interesting, young, relevant. And so currently what we do, we engage or manage a network of about 4,000 contributors in 11 different countries. We are not present in those countries in terms of employees or offices. We do not have to, nowadays, if we want to enter the different parts of Asia, if it's Vietnam or Indonesia or Thailand or Latin America in Mexico, Argentina, Brazil, we can use our technology and local contributors who cover local leagues like the Premier League, like Bundesliga, like the Champions League in local languages using our global technology. And the more you gain scale in terms of more contributors, creating more content, you can actually curate and get to the higher quality stuff. So it is what we call semi-user generated content. It's not fully UGC. Every fan can come and create content, but we would only publish the higher quality stuff. So we do have an internal team of curators in all those languages that decide what gets published, but it's still large scale. We're talking about 1,000 pieces of content every day in 11 different languages. Okay, this is the typical contributor. So his name is Scott. Unfortunately, he's a Manchester United fan, so not our best. But nowadays, these guys are more global, so they do follow multiple teams from multiple countries. They also create videos, and you can see the numbers here. So if you're good on the platform, he has been creating over 6,000 pieces of content. It's not just articles, it's pieces of content, gaining over 130 million reads or consumption numbers for his content. So again, that's the typical contributor that you would find on our platform. And obviously, over time, we have to monetize it. And again, when we started the company and tried to raise money about 5-6 years ago, I would say the main comment we would hear was that, A, it's very difficult to build an advertising-led business, which we know is the case, unless you gain real significant scale. And B, there was this assumption that brands would be reluctant to advertise on a platform where the content is created by fans and amateurs. But if we have seen the trend over the last 3-4 years, it's actually the new media platforms like BuzzFeed or even Bleacher before they got acquired, the different properties of Vox Media, companies such as Copa 90. We do see the brands starting to engage more and more with the new media platforms because they do want to find authentic ways of interacting with the fans, and this is how we have been driving our monetization over the last 2-3 years. Deep integration with some of the top brands in the world. So you see here on the wall some of the advertisers we've been working with, and the secret there was to combine on one platform deep technology integration with the brand, very rich content, video elements, everything kind of in one place, and I'll show you a few examples. So the first one is Star Trek global movie launch by Paramount around the Euro, and it shows how they integrate the movie messaging with the brand, with our property around the world during the Euro last year in France.
Seven captains, 6 countries, all out here blogging for you during Euro 2016.
That's right, thanks to Paramount, ahead of the film Star Trek Beyond. My name's Cheeky Sport Joel.
And I'm Cheeky Sport Dave.
And we're out.
We are kicking off at Euro 2016, and it's amazing.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
So you got it. If you now go to the 90min site or the 90min app, you'll see almost on a regular basis global movie launches, and the way studios launch movies on our platform is, again, deep integration with the content, with the product, but really tapping into the authentic contributor-led content creation. In this case, we're talking about videos. Moving on to the next one, somewhat different style of a campaign. This is with Nike around the Champions League final, launching a Ronaldo product on our platform. again, so the secret of this campaign is actually, this was a video created, the previous one was created by our fans for Paramount. In this case, it's a video created by the brand, by Nike, and then deep integration, global scale into our product with editorial fan content that is pushing that video. So you have to be really, really creative, very customized with your technology capabilities, and very scalable globally to get this business on an ongoing basis with the top brands. This next one goes into our double tap into the esports platform that we've just launched a couple of months ago. So when it comes to esports, we do not compete with Twitch or YouTube on live event broadcast. We do focus on short form videos. We have access and rights into all the major events, including E-League, by the way, but also ESL and DreamHack, some of the top leagues. And there are more and more brands that want to activate around esports, and we believe that we provide one of the most interesting experiences for brands in esports because of our access to the fans. This is an example from, again, a campaign we ran with Warner Brothers that involves on-the-ground activation in a big esports event in Paris, launching the King Arthur movie.
Joined by Shox, our king of the match after his 2-0 victory over Team Envious.
2 King Arthur Kings of the Day. That movie will be in theaters very soon.
So again, the last example now. So what you could see in the previous example was deep integration of activities within the official tournament and the brand itself. So we actually cooperated with I think it was ESL organizing the tournament in Paris to convey some elements related to the King Arthur movie and integrated that with some fan-oriented content on our digital platform. So again, another deeply integrated example of working with a brand. And that's the last one. Yokohama is the global sponsor, shirt sponsor of Chelsea. And what you have to do when you work with the official sponsors is actually create, it's not fan content, it's actually branded content with the team players and then scale them on the platform. So that's just one example of how brands do work on these kind of platforms these days.
Oh, he's brought down, penalty, easy decision.
Trust doesn't come easy. Trust from the fans, from your teammates. Trust in yourself. It is something you need to earn.
I'm Adam Howard. I'm the Chief Solution Architect for a company called Chirp, which is a data over sound leader in this space, connecting many different devices and many different things together using the power of sound. I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story now, and I want you to think about the power of entertainment and when, in particular, you realised how powerful entertainment was. Mine was when I was a young child getting driven with my brother Cameron to the drive-in, believe it or not, back in the day, out in the bush, out in Australia. I think it must have been a date night with Mum and Dad, but it seems a bit odd now to think about it. But particularly when you think about the content, I remember quite distinctly Mum slapping my leg as she realised that I was watching as an alien burst through John Hurt's chest when I was about 3 years of age. So that was a very strong, visceral feeling about the impact of entertainment on our lives, in particular storytelling, I guess. So we've been storytelling for, according to an article in the paper that I read this morning, about 65,000 years. People have been sitting around campfires, telling stories, singing songs, acting, portraying ancient stories, passing down lore, these kind of things. Storytelling is in our DNA, and we've been doing it for millennia. Then we decided to invent things like the wireless and the TV, and we started to sit around in our lounge rooms, rather passively starting to consume what was coming out of the wires. The antenna was more of a thing than the smartphone back then. It was crucial to understanding what was going on. You'll have to excuse the graphic here. It looks like Pennywise's grandpa is on the TV. But as you can see, classic example of a family unit sitting around the TV. This is what we have today. So as we move through broadcast into the second screen, many screens, everyone looking at different types of content at the same time, you find the argument that we've become fragmented. I'm not sure that's true. I just think that we're probably sitting there texting each other while we're watching the same TV. It's certainly no more fragmented than we were sitting there watching the same broadcast, which is probably likely to be quite dull and not particularly entertaining. Now we have many different devices, an on-demand model. We can watch what we want, when we want, how we want, and in what room we want. So we moved from a broadcast through to Netflix, if you like. Still passive, though, still very passive. We're still consuming the same narrative. We're still consuming the same content. It's just on sexier devices. Still passive. What we're starting to see now, and what I'm about to talk about, Jay's going to help me, is we're starting to move into more active consumption, where the narrative starts to get broken up, and our choice is not just about what type of program to watch, but how to affect the program itself. So what we have is leaders like Netflix and Amazon creating shows like Puss in Boots, where it's essentially choose your own adventure. Choose your own adventure has been around for probably 65,000 years. But now we've got a situation where we can start to affect the narrative of these shows. It's been around, the concept's been around for ages, but it hasn't really landed. The technology hasn't been particularly good at it. I think what we're going to start seeing now is a movement in that space. Interactive game shows. People have always been calling into game shows, but it's never really been something that the audience is particularly, is probably the saddos sitting at home calling up some of these shows. But now people are starting to actively engage through applications with the stories. YouTube, classic example, the ability to create shows and actually a new sci-fi series that's just come out is basically a serialized version of many different sci-fi shows that they're actually asking for people to vote about which one to make into a major movie. A very different use of people's choice and people's engagement in the show. And then we got kind of naff stuff like putting mood lighting on the back of your TV in order to kind of bring you into the moment that is the movie. And then we got stuff like Jay, my friend here. Jay's part of a series called Beat Bugs. Now, Beat Bugs is an original Netflix series, an animated series that aired last year and will air again this year, that sing the back catalogue of the Beatles. And each season, they will sing a different back catalogue of a famous band, i.e. from the parents' heritage and indeed beyond that. This Beatles episode with Beat Bugs essentially goes through a range of series, a range of adventures, of which the anchor is always the narrative of singing along. Now, Jay sings along with not only the show on any screen, so you could be watching the Netflix animated series on your smartphone, you could be watching it on your tablet, you could watch it live. He also sings along with his companions. So Jay's got a load of mates, they're all bugs, funnily enough, and they essentially sing All You Need Is Love and many other Beatles songs at the same time in perfect sync. Now, the challenge that we had in order to create these toys along with Hijinks Live, this being the first generation of toys powered by Chirp, was considerations like security. So there was an article only yesterday on CNN, I believe, about the FBI raising the issue of connected toys. They're fantastic, right? They've got great interactivity. But the general concern is that they're quite weak secure. So they've got cameras, they've got microphones. The ability to people to hack into those is evident, and it is a fear for parents. Jay's completely offline. He doesn't have any access to any Wi-Fi networks. He's not listening. All he's doing is providing a very natural interaction for people. You turn Jay on, you start watching the show, and away you go. The experience is very natural. The child doesn't feel like it's in control of it. It feels far more like a friend than a toy that I need to command. So we feel that this sort of play is going to be, because of the, in essence, because of the lack of setup, It just happens. It's a very simple user experience and a great experience for the children. Going to see some epic slides here. These are some of these best graphics I've ever put together. So this is what we normally have in terms of a linear narrative where we construct a story. It's been, you know, you could call it the hero story, you can call it whatever you like. It's a fairly typical approach to narrative. As we develop things that come into the physical trusted space, the content creators, the brand managers, the brand activation guys, the marketeers, the special effects guys, the manufacturers of toys, the manufacturers of POS, the whole lot, are going to have to start thinking in a more 360-degree way, because the opportunity is big. We fall in love with things that are in the physical space far more than we fall in love with stuff that's on a screen. We know this, it's been well researched, and you can tell just by the way, when I play this in front of a bunch of kids with their friends, the delight is evident. They don't get that just from watching the show. It's because something is in their physical trusted space that is multi-sensory, that can help them understand the experience. I just wanted to try and get away with how lean I could get on a slide here, but this is certainly a representation. I could have put a blank canvas up here and it would have probably done the same effect, but we need to start thinking in a more broad sense, pre and post and during, as well as virtual and physical. Take the Aliens example earlier. What would Ridley Scott have done if he had had Powered by Chirp? Can you imagine sitting there watching Alien or Aliens for that matter, and every time there's a hiss or any time something bursts out of a chest, the associated toy that's sitting next to you on the couch brings you very much into the room. So this physical space is a new thing. It's not a new concept, but the technology enabling it now means it's a lot simpler to implement, and it's at a cost price that's going to mean it's going to get in a lot more families' living rooms. So, interesting part about people's physical space and what we're now seeing in people's physical space. Alexa is now becoming a super powerful, trusted part of the family. And the way we see the storytelling going is full circle. We used to sit around campfires and tell stories and tell jokes and tell lore and tell history, sing, have fun. We're now going to be sitting around Alexa. Alexa, Google Home, various other voice assistants are going to become an enabler, a facilitator of storytelling. Some of our technology enables Alexa to interact with toys in that environment, interact with application layers in that environment. The narrative has suddenly become 360. Certainly not linear, something probably more than 360. The possibilities are endless in terms of creating a very fluid, dynamic, interactive environment. You know, we're not sure where it's going to go, but you know, we hope that it's certainly not Chucky, even though I love a bit of Chucky, but we hope it's probably more a little bit like Woody. And we certainly see that Chirp is going to play a powerful role in bringing the physical space to life, whether that's with the voice assistants or broadcast in a more traditional sense. Thank you very much for your time today. I hope you enjoyed it.
Let me start by asking, with all that, with everything we've just seen from the three of you, there's so much fight for attention now. Let me start by asking, how do you think the traditional broadcasters are reacting to all of this? Are they doing a good job, would you say? Yeah, of course I am.
Of course I think we're doing a good job. Now, I mean, we can always do a better job in a sense that, as I talked about before, the different channels, the audience, and driving engagement.
Yeah.
But one big part is about good content, good storytelling, still resonates as well.
Okay. And I mean, you guys come at it from a very digital perspective. What do you think about the traditional response?
Yeah, I think the fight to innovate is high. So you would imagine that there's a lot of smart guys thinking about how that storytelling can become more immersive, more fun, more helpful, easier. We still tend to be so passive about how we consume entertainment, and I don't think that's going to change. What we want to do is put things into people's entertainment experience that's as easy as possible. Mm-hmm. We know that when it starts to get hard, people sort of check out.
And I mean, discovery must be really difficult now as well. So how are people finding the content that you guys are putting out there?
Yeah, can you repeat the question, please?
How are people discovering your content?
Yeah. So, as I've indicated before, you cannot wait until they come and discover it. You have to be very proactive and find them on the platforms where they spend more the time on. It's Facebook, it's Instagram, it's Snapchat, so it's Google search. So you have to be very proactive in making sure your content gets out there for them to find you on their feeds and then come to you through that.
What was another connection, I think, and it's a growing trend within media, is video consumption is growing constantly. What do you think about the written word? Has that got a future when it comes to media, or are we all going to have to be video editors and producers?
Sorry, what word you said?
The written word.
Yeah. Written word, oh.
Yeah. What's that?
No, I don't think it's that. I mean, people consume more and more video. I mean, I think, personally, I always think there's some space for the written word. But even if you look at CNN, besides the channel, also on the website, yeah, we have more and more video, but we still have some written word. But it is declining in importance.
Yeah. I think if you walk up and down the aisles of the people out there, distinct lack of strap lines. I don't know what half of those businesses do, just a load of logos. Yeah. That's the written word. Yeah. It is, you can't beat it in terms of summing up something, in an elegant, quick way. I think videos are very engaging, clearly, medium, but the written word ain't going away anytime soon.
Yeah. Well, I think what we're going to see is just, we do believe that written word is here to stay. You just see, on average, less words per content item. I think that's the secret, not completely disappear.
Yeah. And so, Adam, you were showing us voice is going to be of growing importance as well. How do you all see that playing within the future of media? So obviously we've seen Amazon entering this space. How are you guys seeing that grow?
Well, I think what you're going to start to see as well is that the voice services will start to drop into everything. So it's not just sitting there looking at Alexa. It'll be in light switches. It'll be in toys. It'll be in a load of other medium that taps into enormously powerful voice recognition software. But you'll find that everything, inanimate objects, are going to become inanimate pretty quickly. So it's going to be an interesting space to play. Where it ends up in terms of everything sort of having control over each other, I'm not so sure. But I think a big concern for me is security, obviously, about these kind of things. But I'm glad it's offline. But we'll see whether 90 Minutes going to end up with a skill on Alexa anytime soon.
And we should talk it over.
Is that something you guys talk about, voice technology at all?
Yeah, we do. And for example, for us, because a big part of our audience is kids, and some of them, they can watch, but they can't read yet. So we are playing around also with voice technology on some of our digital assets to help them actually discover some of our content again to your discoverability access.
Right. So we are just going to talk to our television sets and iPads so far?
At a certain stage, yes.
Yeah, it's definitely going to happen. And to come back to, we're looking at how this is going to impact toys as well. And earlier this year, we covered a piece looking at the dangers of toy technology, how they're monitoring children. Is that something that we should be more worried about? Just the switched, the always-on technology and how it's monitoring us? Yeah. Is that something that you guys all think about?
Yeah. So from our standpoint, not just about kids, but because our content is less, I would say, contained in terms of how it's created, you have to make sure that you maintain quality and originality and stuff like that. Otherwise, brands or partners will not be working with you. So as part of that open web, but then curation layer, you have to take care of this stuff. Otherwise, you cannot really scale as a business.
Yeah, and security. I mean, as a lot of our audience, again, are kids. I mean, security is a big part for us, and not just for us as a company, but also for the parents of the kids that engage with our content. So even with all the products that we have, parental control, for example, is still a big thing for a lot of parents as well. Yeah. And if you lead it into monitoring or listening in devices, people get really scared.
There was a lot of talk about esports. What is the potential of esports? It seems to have grown in the last few years. Where do you think that's going to go?
I mean, a lot of potential in esports. It's still growing as a phenomenon. And I think it's still kind of in the early stages of defining kind of the ecosystem. So we have the teams, the players, the publishers play a big role. The leagues, of course, and that's why we started with the leagues, are important as well. But nobody has really figured out yet how the future is going to be, because it's different than, for example, football, where you have the UEFA or the local leagues. So it's really about trying to find out how does that ecosystem evolve without alienating the fans. And for me, it's ultimately about the people who watch, because many more people watch than actually play, to make those watchers into kind of more casual gamers with a competitive element around that.
Okay.
So I think that if you want to get the answer to that, you have to go and just go to one of these arenas that sit with 50,000 young people and watch people shooting at one another. I think that once you see that and the enthusiasm around it for 3 straight days, you understand that it's a phenomena that is here to stay. I think what's yet to be clear is how the media landscape will shape around it to turn it into real business, and how advertisers will interact with the game, with all the kind of the challenges there, and broadcasters, how they will become part of the business. I think it's really growing, but the business side of it is still shaping up.
Okay. And is the future of television, because we've seen shifted viewing, and very few people really do watch television live anymore. It's very much catch up. Do you think sports are really the only way that's going to work in terms of live viewing in the future? Sports.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny enough, still a lot of people actually watch live TV. I personally don't, but still a lot of people do. But sports is a big, big thing. And in the US, of course, we've got sport rights. We've got sport rights, football rights in Brazil and in Argentina as well, because it's one of the few appointment-to-view elements that there still is. So sports will remain a very important part. Whether or not people will watch that on their television or on another device, it's a different question.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm not sure live TVs. Ask the broadcasters how many people watch Game of Thrones live. I just think they need to do it better. I think that it needs to be of a certain scale and done in a certain quality. But that is, I'd assume, quite a nugget for people to go after. There's probably no bigger prize than to get that many eyeballs on a live, but you've got to invest in it. People aren't just going to sit there and cop it on the chin. It's like this. It needs to be spectacular, global, a movement.
So I have a theory that the broadcasters leak the spoilers so people know they have to watch it live, otherwise they're going to get it ruined for them the next morning. Yeah. So I think that's one way to keep people watching.
Probably leak them to you.
Yeah. I wouldn't necessarily say that.
It's a good tactic.
Yeah, no, it does work. And of course, for advertisers, and when we talk about advertising and brand sponsorship, of course, for them, it's still an important part of as well, and be engaged with that ultimate beginning. But also, if you look at some of the series, like Game of Thrones, every series had increase. So by driving that, and it's not just through the linear viewing, it's the catch-up, it's the HBO OTT service, and also social engagement, that viewership actually can grow over time. It doesn't always have to decline.
Okay. We don't have a lot of time left, so one thing I'd quite like to cover from each of you is there one certain piece of technology that's coming through that you think is going to make a massive difference to the way that we view and consume entertainment in the future? Each of you.
Yeah. I would say that, I would start simple. To me, one of the key questions is right now you see this emergence into video consumption and demand for video advertising, and then more and more users shifting to mobile. I think the integration of scaling video on mobile devices, to me, is yet to really happen. So I think the technology that will enable scalable video consumption on mobile and how to integrate with advertising is actually a key thing, at least digitally, that we would be looking for.
Yeah, I'm gonna go a little old school here, and I go back to an article during the week about Dunkirk, where Christopher Nolan talks about VR without the goggles. So I think there is a space for high quality film, if you like, in order to bring people into that world. It's not a race to the finish line of what's the new technology. I think there's space to actually do stuff better, more quality, more immersive, utilising the technology we've got in order to make that original experience best, but then disseminating that out in a really slick, lovely way. But just do what we do well, but do it better. I think there's something in that.
No, I agree with that, and what I talked about before, kind of VR is an important component, because it's still developing, but it can become really that immersive experience. And to your point, kind of, if you combine that with the power of the mobile, and if you think longer term about the future of self-driving cars, what are you going to do in a self-driving car? Well, you're going to be entertained. Your device is going to be the mobile, and if you combine it with VR, you can make an immersive experience while you're being driven to somewhere.
entertained or very scared. Well, depends how that goes. But I mean, one of the issues with VR though is we're still seeing so many experiences being created, but surely the audience is not growing fast enough. I mean, there's probably more experiences than there are people actually using VR.
There is, but it's still catching up and it's still growing. Kind of 3D, of course, died more or less, but VR, it's still growing, and this year again, more devices are being shipped, so more people are using it, and I think the experiences themselves are getting much, much better. The initial experiences were not that great or not good enough. Now we're getting to a stage where some of those experiences are really becoming immersive, that are good enough that people actually want to engage with them.
And we're just coming to the end. Sorry guys, we didn't quite have enough time to do audience questions, but I always like to end on a yes or no, a big question for a yes or no, just as a cliffhanger for everyone. So in 20 years' time, yes or no, will we still have televisions in our living room?
Yes.
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 Well, okay, TV's here to stay, thank God. Dixons will be happy. Guys, can I say a big thank you? That's been a really interesting hour. Such a big topic, couldn't cover everything, but that's been fascinating. Thank you to the guys.